Hi garden friend, do you have a shady spot where nothing will grow? I hear that all the time. And as someone who's been a master gardener with over 30 years of experience, even I was stumped by this spot right here. And today I'm not just going to show you the plants that finally worked for me, I'm going to tell you why plants struggle as much in dry shade and what I did about it before I ever put a single plant in the ground. And this just might be the solution for your dry, shady garden too. So let's go, shall we? Now here's what most people don't understand about a spot like this. And this is really important. You see, it's not just the shade. And do you see that redwood tree in my neighbor's yard right there? Those roots are running all through this bed and they are competing for every bit of moisture and every bit of nutrition in the soil. So anything you try to grow here isn't just dealing with low light and dry conditions. It's going up against an established root system that has been depleting this soil for years. That is what makes dry shade gardening so incredibly challenging. And that is exactly why before I ever put a single plant in the ground, I had to deal with the soil first. So I simply worked in a combination of compost and worm castings. Now the compost is to rebuild the organic matter and improve the soil structure, and the worm castings are to give these plants that gentle, slow release of nutrients they needed to get established. You have to give them something to work with, so don't skip that step. And I will link the worm castings I use down in the description. So let's look at the plants that I've put in. So starting over here at the end of this bed, and this is where I really wanted to establish some fullness and texture right away. Now this autumn fern came in here first, and honestly it set the tone for everything that followed. You know, there's something about the way ferns feel in a shady spot, that soft arching texture that just belongs underneath of a tree, and the way that it grows together with the hostas over here playing against those feathery fern fronds, that combination just works. The hostas have been incredible in this spot. Different sizes, different colors, and all of them carrying this entire end of the bed beautifully. From the moment that they come up in spring right through summer, and once they're established in dry shade, they are remarkably reliable. Now hostas, as you know, or maybe you don't, they come in a variety of colors and sizes. I've got one down here and it's called blue mouse ears. And these colors are just absolutely beautiful. Look at the different shades and tonalities that they provide in this garden space. I just love how these plants intermingle together. And moving into the back of this bed, now this is where I finally started thinking about structure and light, because one of the real challenges with a dry shady spot is that it can start to feel heavy and dark, and you have to be a little intentional about how you work with that. Now this small fatsia here gives you that bold, dramatic evergreen presence that anchors this section. Those glossy leaves catch whatever light filters through and they just hold the space. But right alongside it is one of my favorite moments in this whole bed, and this is the Aurelia Sun King. That bright chartreuse foliage just glows back there. In a spot where the light is already limited, having that pop of color completely lifts the whole area. And then right next to the fatsia is this hardy fuchsia. And that's exactly what makes this one so special. This is a hardy fuchsia and it's perfectly happy right here in this dry shade. And when it blooms, it brings a color and delicacy to this back section of this bed that you just wouldn't expect to find in a spot like this. And tucked in right here, and you might almost walk past it without noticing, this is sarcococca, which is also known as sweet box. And I want to tell you something about this plant because I think it is one of the most underrated plants you can put in a dry shady bed. It's low, it's tidy, and it stays evergreen. But in late winter, when there's almost nothing else happening in this garden, you walk out here and that fragrance just stops you in your tracks. It has tiny little white flowers that you almost have to search for, but the scent coming off of them is absolutely incredible. It blooms when nothing else will, and it handles the root competition without complaint. It never asks for a thing. This is the plant that truly earns its place. Sarcococca, sweet box. And please don't forget, if you're finding this helpful, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. I put out gardening content every week, and I would love to have you come along. Okay, let's keep going. And coming down to the front of this bed right here, this is the moment I want you to really stop and look. The brunnera. It's called Jack Frost. Just look how it glows in the shade. It catches the light and absolutely lights up the front of this bed the same way that the Aurelia King lights up the back. In spring, it puts out these delicate little blue flowers that look almost like forget-me-nots, and it's just charming. It looks like it might be high maintenance. It absolutely is not. And if you look around it, weaving through this whole bed, threading between everything, now that is my sweet woodruff. This is my ground cover for the entire bed. And what it does is something I think most gardeners really underestimate. It knits everything together and it fills every gap. It softens the edges in the spring. It covers itself with the most dainty white flowers. Brush against it and you get that lovely sweet hay fragrance. Without the sweet woodruff, this would just be a collection of individual plants. With it, it feels like one living, breathing garden. Brunnera, Jack Frost, and sweet woodruff. So when I first started thinking about what to put in this bed, I knew that I needed something that could anchor the whole space. Something bold enough to set the tone for everything else. And that's exactly what led me to this fatsia. I have two of them in here, and just look at that foliage. Those big glossy leaves that almost look tropical. People stop and stare because they can't believe something this dramatic is thriving in a spot like this. But here's the thing about fatsia. It's as tough as it is beautiful. It's evergreen, and it handles dry shade, and it handles the root competition. It anchors this whole bed, and everything else gets to play off of it. This fatsia has almost doubled in size within a year's time. I just started this bed last year, and I will link the video at the end of this video so you can see exactly how I put this garden together just a year ago. And right alongside it, this sword fern. The sword fern does for this end of the bed what the autumn fern does on the other end. It softens everything around it and adds a beautiful arching texture. And the two of them together feel completely natural under this tree. You know, I want to say something about every single plant in this bed, but none of them get the credit they deserve like these do. You are not going to see these on the cover of a gardening magazine, but what they are doing right here is they are thriving in one of the toughest spots a garden can throw at you. That is something remarkable. And this grouping of epimediums right here might be the best proof of that. And I have about 7 of them growing together right here. Dry soil, dense shade, redwood roots competing for everything, and epimedium simply does not care. In spring, the most delicate little flowers come up that almost look like little columbines. And in the fall, the foliage goes to the most beautiful bronzy red. It spreads slowly and quietly and completely handles itself. Now, if you have a spot in your garden where everything has died, this is the plant I want you to try. This is a true survivor, and it deserves so much more attention than it gets. Now, I've also got some tall epimediums, and I'm telling you, I don't even water them. They're incredible. These taller ones here get little yellow flowers on them. I just think this is terrific because it is a full shade situation where I barely even water it. So you might want to consider epimediums. There's a wide variety of different epimediums from short to taller. And then right in front, right here in this terracotta pot, the Japanese forest grass. And I'll be completely honest with you, I need more of it. Look how beautifully this moves and how the soft texture against the fatsia foliage next to it, it just makes everything around it look better. That is definitely going to be on my list for next season without question. I decided to put it in this terracotta pot to give it a little elevation and make a striking statement. What do you think? Do you have Japanese forest grass? I think it's beautiful. Look how it brightens up this spot too. Okay, here's the garden tip of the day. And if you have a challenging spot like this one, please listen to this because it is critical. Mulch. Do not skip it and do not skimp on it. You know, we talked at the beginning about amending the soil before you plant, and mulch is how you keep doing that work over time. And in a dry, shady bed with tree roots competing for every bit of moisture, mulch is holding in that moisture in the soil. It's like a blanket. It's moderating the soil temperature as it breaks down, and it continuously is adding organic matter back into the soil that those tree roots are constantly depleting. It just keeps working for you season after season. You want about 2 to 3 inches, not so thin that it's not doing anything. I'd like to thank you for joining me today. I hope this is giving you some inspiration. I hope you're having a great gardening day, and I'll catch you in the next one.